Jagati Hari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari 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 Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radhe, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radhe, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Gaura Pimanande, Jai Vishupad Paramahamsa, Pri Vrajagacharya Stotra Satta, Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhai Charan Arvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Skandi Viti, Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Vistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Antikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatan Vitam Tvam Sarvetam Savadutam Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Sya Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Gaitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesh Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed or practically to nil, and a loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nisreya Sayalokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God, which is compiled by the incarnation of God as Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Sarabhyaya Namaha Om Sarabhyaya Namaha Om Sarabhyaya Namaha Mukam Karoti Vasalam Pangam Langayate Gim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Let's see what happens. Continuing from Canto number 1, chapter 9, the passing away of Bhishmadev, text number 27, correct, 27. Wow, another long purport. Yes. Dana, Dharman, Raja, Actually, I think I should go a little bit this way because the book, yeah, just move everything back. A little bit of rain, but yeah, just move it back. This can be taken here. Take, yeah, okay, and this. So take this. Here you go. Take this.
Can't we move inside? No.
Not right now. Hare Krishna. More here. More here. Bus. Okay. Yes. 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 So let us resume. Yes. Dana Dharman Raja Dharman Moksha Dharman Vibhagashah Stri Dharman Bhagavat Dharman Samasa Vyasa Yogataha Danadharmam Rajadharman Mokshadharman Vibhagashah Sridharman Bhagavat Dharman Samasa Vyasa Yogataha Danadharman Rajadharman Mokshadharman Vibhagashah Sridharman Bhagavat Dharman Samasa Vyasa Yogataha Danadharman Rajadharman Mokshadharman Vibhagashah Sridharman Bhagavat Dharman Samasa Vyasa Yogataha
Danadharman
Rajadharman
Mokshadharman
Vibhagashah
Sridharman Bhagavat
Dharman
Samasa
Vyasa Yogataha
Danadharman
Rajadharman
Mokshadharman
Mokshadharman
Sridharman Bhagavat
Sridharman Bhagavat Dharman
Samasa Vyasa
Yogataha
Danadharman Rajadharman Mokshadharman Vibhagashah Sridharman
Bhagavat Dharman
Samyasa Vyasa Yogataha
Samasa Vyasa Yogataha
Danadharman Rajadharman
Rajadharman
Mokshadharman Vibhagashah
Mokshadharman Vibhagashah
Sridharman Bhagavat
Sridharman Bhagavat Dharman
Samasa Vyasa
Yogataha
Danadharman Rajadharman Mokshadharman Vibhagashah
Sridharman
Sridharman श्रीधर्मन् भगवद्धर्मन्
Sridharman Bhagavat Dharman
समस वैस योगथा
Samasa Vyasa Yogataha Dana Dharman.
Dana Dharman,
The acts of charity.
the acts of charity.
Raja Dharman.
Raja Dharman,
Pragmatic activities of the kings.
pragmatic activities of the king.
Moksha Dharman.
Moksha Dharman,
The acts of salvation.
the acts of salvation.
Vibhagasaha.
Vibhagashaha,
By divisions.
by division.
Stri Dharman.
Dharman,
Duties of women.
duties of women.
Bhagavat Dharman.
Bhagavad Dharman,
The acts of the devotees.
the acts of devotees.
Samasa.
समासः
Generally.
Generally,
Vyasa.
व्यासः
Explicitly.
explicitly.
Yogataha.
योगतः
By means of.
by means of
Translation and the purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki.
जय
He then explained, yes, he means Bhishma Dev, yes. He then explained by divisions, acts of charity, activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. Kindly repeat after me. He then explained
He then explained
by divisions,
by division,
acts of charity,
acts of charity,
the pragmatic activities of a king,
the pragmatic
and activities for salvation.
and
and activities of soul salvation.
Then he described
Then he described
the duties of women
the duties of women
and devotees,
and devotees
both briefly
both briefly
and extensively.
and extensively.
Purport. To give charity is one of the householder's main functions, and he should be prepared to give in charity at least 50% of his hard-earned money. A brahmachari or student should perform sacrifices. A householder should give charity, and a person in the retired life or in the renounced order should practice penances and austerities. Those are the general functions of all ashramas, or orders of life on the path of self-realization. In the brahmachari life, the training is sufficiently imparted so that one may understand that the world as property belongs of the Lord. Everyone is generated or borrowed from the reservoir of the Lord. Therefore, the resultant actions of such energy must be given to the Lord in the shape of transcendental loving service for Him. As the rivers draw water from the sea through the clouds and again go down to the sea, similarly our energy is borrowed from the Supreme Source, the Lord's energy, and it must return to the Lord. That is the perfection of our energy. The Lord, therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 9:27 says that whatever we do, whatever we undergo as penance, whatever we sacrifice, whatever we eat in charity, must be offered to Him, the Lord. A way of utilizing our borrowed energy. When our energy is utilized in that way, our energy is purified from the contaminated, and thus we become fit for our original natural life of service to the Lord. a very important point being explained here, that whatever we utilize, whatever we have, including this body, is directly actually Krishna's energy. We have not created this material world, and we have no control actually over this material energy. Rather, we are very, very strongly controlled at every moment, even though we may not realize it. We are controlled by this material energy, isn't it? Prabhupada would explain very simply, because sometimes people say, no, I'm independent. No one is independent. We are, every single moment of our lives actually controlled. We cannot prevent, although scientists are trying in different ways to slow down the aging process. We don't want to grow old. We don't want all kinds of diseases that are imposed upon us by material nature. So Prabhupada would say how an intelligent person will ask himself, why this is forced upon me, why this is imposed. I don't want to be suffering in so many different ways, but suffering comes. Nobody plans for suffering, isn't it? But suffering comes. So that's why that very nice understanding, which is very clearly explained by our acharyas in the Shastras, in the same way that we don't plan for suffering, so we don't need to plan for happiness. Because actually the whole world is just working very hard how I can be happy, how I can minimize my suffering condition, and how I can maximize my happiness. But those who are devotees have this understanding to different degrees, that we don't even have to make an effort to be happy, to be materially happy. And in any event, even that so-called material happiness, what is it? Chapala sukha. It is flickering. It is very temporary, very short-lived, isn't it? Rather, an intelligent person, he will be striving for something that is permanent. Isn't it? That's what self-realization is all about. That is what the whole process of bhakti. Bhakti rasa amrita sindhu, eternal position. So, what is more intelligent? To strive very hard for something that is temporary and flickering, or to strive for something that actually is permanent. So this point helps us to actually understand how everything, this is the mood and mentality of actual devotees, that everything, just like here, we need to develop this consciousness. Okay, whatever is here actually belongs to Krishna, and we should, it's like, what is it? People have different, what is called estate, like George Harrison donated the Bhaktivedanta Manor, what we know as today as the Bhaktivedanta. That was an estate, a good amount of land, and naturally, we have made the wonderful temple that is there, and they have very nice trees and gardens, and very nicely kept, because so many people, they go there. And so in a similar way, whether it's a temple, whether it's our home, whether it's our cloth, whatever it may be, we try to utilize that in Krishna service, and we recognize, we try to understand that actually it all belongs to Krishna, isn't it? So it's not that we only are concerned about decorating very nicely the altar, and the rest of the place is like a mess. untidy. You see. So temple is not only just on the altar, that kind of understanding. Whatever Krishna has given us, has allowed us to utilize, then we should nicely take care of it and properly utilize it in his service. So Prabhupada continues here actually to explain more on this purport. Raja Dharma. So Raja Dharma is a great science. Unlike modern diplomacy for political supremacy. We are totally controlled by material nature. Every single moment. So the kings were trained systematically to become munificent and not merely be tax collectors. They were trained to perform different sacrifices only for the prosperity of the subjects. And of course, the main prosperity was spiritual prosperity, isn't it? Arranging so many jagyas and sacrifice and activities that would allow citizens to actually become advanced spiritually. To lead the prajas to the attainment of salvation was a great duty of the king. The father, the spiritual master, and the king are not to become irresponsible in the matter of leading their subjects to the path of ultimate liberation from birth, death, disease, and old age. This is one of the primary instructions given by King Rishabhadev. Guru na sasyat, pita na sasyat. One should not become a guru, a spiritual master, a king, or leader in society unless one is able to deliver one's dependents. What is being referred to here. When these primary duties are properly discharged, there is no need of government by the people. What is government by the people?
Democracy.
Yes. Yes. So democracy, because actually it is understood that majority of people are not able to actually know what is best, because there's a lot of, just like it is mentioned, to actually become a leader in society, there needs to be systematic training. One has to learn so many things, isn't it? And that's not in the capacity of most, let's say, common people. So therefore, on that basis, democracy amongst unequals is not Vedic. Democracy amongst equals, that is something else. Just like Brahmanas would sometimes, in the case of King Vina, as we know, was a bad king. And therefore, the Brahmanas got together. They had a special meeting, emergency meeting, extraordinary meeting, and they passed a resolution. He's got to go. And they made arrangements for that to happen. So that democracy amongst equals, like Brahmanas, is different from modern day democracy, where, based on if you're 18 or above, you can decide what is best for the country. Yeah. So this is the point being made here. Government of the people. I'll just start again this line, this sentence. When these primary duties are properly discharged, there is no need of government of the people by the people. In modern days, the people in general occupy the administration by the strength of manipulated votes. Yes. But they are never trained in the primary duties of the king. And that is also not possible. And that is also not possible for everyone. Under the circumstances, the untrained administrators play havoc to make the subjects happy in all respects. On the other hand, these On the other hand, these untrained administrators gradually become rogues and thieves and increase the taxation to finance a top-heavy administration that is useless for all purposes. We probably don't need to comment so much on that. That's like obvious. Actually, the qualified brahmanas are meant to give direction to the kings for proper administration in terms of the scriptures, like the Manusamhita and Dharma Shastras of Parasara. A typical king is the ideal of the people in general. And if the king is pious, religious, chivalrous, and munificent, the citizens generally follow him. Such a king is not a lazy, sensuous person living at the cost of the subjects, but alert always to kill thieves and dacoits. The pious kings were not merciful to dacoits and thieves in the name of nonsensical ahimsa, nonviolence. The thieves and dacoits were punished in an exemplary way so that in the future no one would dare commit such nuisances in an organized form. Such thieves and dacoits were never meant for administration as they are now. Quite heavy statements, yes. So it's translated as the rod of chastisement. When a king, in the Vedic times, when someone comes to power, then he represents what is called the rod of chastisement. What is a rod of chastisement? Well, generally it's a sword or any type of weapon which sometimes is necessary to use to keep law and order. Because the general population, especially if they're not Krishna conscious, will tend to be not following, the laws properly. So, for proper administration, people in general need to know that, well, if I don't follow, I will be punished. I will be chastised. So that's why courts are there. That's why prisons are there, etc., like that. So, in other words, for a proper government, there needs to be qualified individuals who will be able to, when there is necessity, give due punishment. Next paragraph is on taxation. The taxation law was simple. There was no force and no encroachment. The king had a right to take 1/4 of the production made by the subject. So what is 1/4? 25%. Yes. The king had a right to claim 1/4 of one's allotted wealth. One would never grudge parting with it because due to the pious king and religious harmony, there was enough natural wealth, namely, and what is wealth in the Vedic culture? Grains, fruits, flowers, silk, cotton, milk, jewels, minerals, etc. And therefore no one was materially unhappy. The citizens were rich in agriculture and animal husbandry, and therefore they had enough grains, fruits, and milk without any artificial needs of soaps and toilets, cinemas, and bars, which is the standard in modern day society. So yes, a very simplified taxation system. Nowadays in different countries, every year you have to fill out your taxation papers, and generally people have to go and consult with somebody because it's complicated. And so people who do that work, they make money. And continuing here regarding duties of the king had to see that the reserved energy of humanity was properly utilized. Human energy is meant not exactly for fulfilling animal propensities, but for self-realization. The whole government was specifically designed to fulfill this particular purpose. What particular purpose? Self-realization. In other words, the king's primary responsibility is to facilitate, to enable, to help citizens actually advance in spiritual life. Because that is the kings, Vedic kings, they knew, they understood, they were trained in that way, that the primary duty and responsibility, the success in one's life is actually to become self-realized. And they would facilitate. In other words, that's one reason they would support like a Gurukula. They would support Vedic education. They would support Brahmanas, who are the Vedic teachers, so that this knowledge and the primary purpose of life was actually fulfilled. As such, the king had to select properly the cabinet ministers, but not on the strength of voting background. The ministers, the military commanders, and even the ordinary soldiers were all selected by personal qualification. And the king had to supervise them properly before they were appointed to their respective posts. The king was especially vigilant to see that the tapasvis, or persons who sacrificed everything for disseminating spiritual knowledge, were never disregarded. And the next line is again in italics, means it's important. The king knew well that the Supreme Personality of Godhead never tolerates any insult to his unalloyed devotees. Yeah. Such tapasvis were trusted leaders even of the rogues and thieves, who would never disobey the orders of tapasvis. Not like today. The king would give special protection to illiterates, to helpless, and widows of the state. Defense measures were arranged previous to any attack by the enemies. The taxing process was easy, and it was not meant for squandering, but was for strengthening the reserve fund. The soldiers were recruited from all parts of the world, and they were trained for special duties. Yeah. Because in those days, the king was not just a king, he was the emperor, right? Emperor Yudhishthira Maharaj. So emperor, it's difficult for us to imagine today, but emperor for the whole world. Yeah. As far as salvation is concerned, one has to conquer the principles of lust, anger, unlawful desires, avarice, and bewilderment. To get freedom from anger, one should learn how to forgive. To be free from unlawful desires, one should not make plans. By spiritual culture, one is able to conquer sleep. So these are like practical ways how to be successful in these different activities. By tolerance, one can conquer, by tolerance only, one can conquer desires and avarice. Disturbances from various diseases can be avoided by regulated diets. By self-control, one can be free from false hopes, and money can be saved by avoiding undesirable association. Important point. By practice of yoga, yoga has its place, one can control hunger, and worldliness can be avoided by cultivating or by culturing the knowledge of impermanence. Dizziness can be controlled by rising up. So if you're about to fall asleep in the body, get up.
Rising.
Yeah. Of course, that can also be understood by rising above the modes of material nature. One will be more, conscious. So dizziness can be conquered by rising up, and false arguments can be conquered by factual ascertainment. Talkativeness can be avoided by gravity and silence, and by prowess one can avoid fearfulness. Perfect knowledge can be obtained by self-cultivation. One must be free from lust, avarice, anger, dreaming, etc. to actually attain the path of salvation. So these are practical instructions how to become a more qualified and useful member of society. And two more paragraphs. As far as the women class are concerned, they are accepted as a power of inspiration for men. As such, women are more powerful than men. Maybe except the men. Are more powerful than men. Mighty Julius Caesar was controlled by a Cleopatra. Such powerful women are controlled by shyness. It's important for women. Once this control valve is loosened, women can create havoc in society by adultery. Adultery means production of unwanted children, known as Varna Sankara, who yes. So what are the two main qualities described? One is mentioned here for women: shyness and chastity, isn't it? Shyness and chastity. And that was very much emphasized in the Vedic culture, and therefore there was special attention or special protection actually given to women. And women were not, as we find today, allowed to just freely and independently mix as especially mixed amongst men. In the name of so-called equality, women are just intermingling with men and the vice versa, and that is not the Vedic standard, and that's the cause of so many major problems in society as well. The last paragraph it was the process of pleasing the Lord, eternal servants of the Lord, and when we forget this essential part of our nature, we are put into material conditions of life. The simple process of pleasing the Lord, for the householders especially, the deity of the Lord at home, we were discussing yesterday or the day before, worshipping the deity at home, serving the devotee, hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, residing in a holy place and chanting the holy name of the Lord are all inexpensive items by which one can please the Lord. This is directly in reference to what we find in the Madhya Lila, chapter, I believe, 22, on the pure devotional service. So one of the verses Prabhupada is quoting or referring to here, Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Sravana Maturabhasa Srimurtira Sradhaya Sevana Sakala Sadhana Sresta E Pancha Anga Krishna Prema Janamai E Pancha Alpo Sangha. That even a small amount of association with any of these 5 activities, Hare Krishna, with any of these 5 activities, will facilitate, will favor, help one actually progress on the path of spiritual life. So these are summarized here. by Srila Prabhupada at the end of this purport. And the last sentence, thus the subject matter was explained by the grandfather to his grandchildren. So again, grandfather Bhishmadev, this is like very, very briefly summarizing a very elaborate explanation that is to be found in the Mahabharata on these various different subject matters. And that's why this section in the Mahabharata is meant to be studied actually, especially by personalities like Yudhishthira Maharaj, who are meant to become leaders within society. They have to know, actually, it's it's a very great science, obviously. I mean, to become a devotee in itself is a great science, and to take on some particular post and responsibility in society, such as a king, or for that matter, a teacher, let's say at school or at college, requires a particular type of training and formation so that there can be, proper effect or results. So this is a little glimpse of some of the topics, and these are meant to be actually extracted, I would say, especially those who will be involved in formulating a curriculum for training individuals to become leaders in society, means kshatriyas, which is very much needed in modern day society. Yes. So any questions or thoughts on this?
But on the today's auspicious day, on the occasion of this today's,
Yes.
Radharani serves to Krishna by his whole dedication and whole justice and all the things. So also our objective is also to do services for Lord Krishna.
Our objective is also to
Serve Lord Krishna.
to serve. Yes.
So how we will do today by or in future life?
How?
How we will do that services to Lord Krishna by the different ways? There are so many ways, but still some specific to please Lord.
Well, I mean, how will we as individuals perform activities for the primary purpose, which is actually mentioned here at the end of the purport, and which is a central point being mentioned also in the text, that you see, we when we do it in the proper consciousness, even, I mean, Grandfather Bhishmadev is a prime example. So is Yudhishthira Maharaj. They were like politicians. So, I mean, generally we think, well, it's a mundane material thing. Well, it's a mundane and material thing if you do it in a mundane and material consciousness. But it becomes devotional service. It becomes a spiritual activity. You know, Arjuna's shooting his arrows can be considered like something material, but it was his devotion to Krishna. It was his way of performing devotional service for which there was no karmic reaction. So this is what we need to understand. I mean, we were reading also yesterday's text and instructions by Grandfather Bhishmadev, very important in that um, the point being that it is not the activity itself that is so important, but it is the consciousnesses in which we perform our activities. And the main point that was being mentioned yesterday by Srila Prabhupada was that he used the word accelerate. How to, naturally we want to increase our ability, let's say, to know Krishna or to serve Krishna. We should rather stress our ability to serve Krishna, because by serving him, he will be pleased and he'll be, blessing us in different ways. So the very important point that was mentioned yesterday is that when, because yesterday's verse was also referring to varnashrama in a general way, and I think it's at the very beginning of the verse we read yesterday, which was also quite yes. Yes. The word, I thought it was at the beginning here. To accelerate.
Conception for forecasts.
Huh?
The four orders of life is as planned by.
In the very first sentence. Yes, the conception of the forecast and four orders of life as planned by the Lord himself. So this is a purport to text 26, right? Is to accelerate transcendental qualities, which is connected with the question you're asking. So, how to, today being Radhastami and Srimati Radharani being the emblem of bhakti, of devotion. She is the mother of devotion, and she is the most perfect devotee. Everyone is meant to learn how to perform devotional service by understanding and following in her footsteps. So this was mentioned yesterday and is also referred to here in today's text, but specifically that learning, in other words, whatever service we are meant to do, because we all have different services. We're not all pujaris on the altar, majority of people are not pujaris on the altar. Majority of people are not doing direct service in the temple. That's reserved generally for brahmanas, isn't it? Or people who assist brahmanas. Majority of people are far away from the altar. Majority of people, we see that even now, like in villages, they'll come and just from a distance they'll offer the dandabas before they go to the field. Like this worker did a few minutes ago. They know that, okay, the Lord is here, but I have work to do. Yeah, and within our society, it's like, we tend to think, oh, this is Maya, This is like, no, I want to be a devotee. Well, you don't know what it means to be a devotee. Devotee is not just somebody having a bead bag, walking around and chanting all the time. That's not a devotee. A devotee means he understands that according to his particular position, and we generally don't understand that within our society, because everyone is stuck up in so many ways with the temple, So the idea is that we have to learn that so many activities that we're meant to do that need to be done in order for society to function, in order for the family to be maintained, etc. When we do them in the proper consciousness, this is as good as being on the altar and serving the Lord, isn't it? So devotional activities are not simply performed in a temple. And this is what is actually, that is a whole understanding of what is called Daiva Varnashrama. Daiva Varnashrama, the word Daiva means divine, isn't it? All of our activities are meant to be divine, divine in that they are meant to be performed for the pleasure and satisfaction of Krishna. And then such activities, they don't incur or create karmic reaction. When we don't perform our activities for Krishna, I mean, somebody sent a letter, shared a letter just a couple of days ago, making this same point also. You know, actually, there was one Mataji, I'll get this example will maybe help to clarify even further. In the early days, you know, devotees were very intense because Prabhupada was intense. You know, devotees, the focus was very much the temple and activities in terms of book distribution. It was like very temple focused. And you know, devotees, Matajis, they wanted to do some service for the deities, you know, make garlands, they wanted to be on the altar, this and that. So in the beginning, when you're single, that's great, wonderful. But then, you know, when you're married and when you have a kid, then so there was one Mataji. She had a small baby, but she was, you know, before getting married, she was a very good, you know, servant on the altar. She loved to do her deity worship service. You know, she became very attached to doing that. And then she got, and then she still wanted to do that service. So what she would do, she would leave the little child, little baby, and she would do her service. And then, you know, everyone became disturbed. They tried to chant, you know, the holy name, and then, you know, rah, rah, rah. The small baby was crying because he was not attended to. So this somehow came to Prabhupada's attention, and he gave a message to one devotee. You go and tell this Mataji that actually, because she's a mother, looking after her child is more important than doing service on the altar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's your devotional service. You're a mother. You have a child. Your responsibility is to look after that child so that he can become or she can become a nice devotee of Krishna. That is your bhakti, your devotional service. That is your seva. That's how you will make advancement, not simply by abandoning him and just, oh, I'm doing service to Krishna on the altar. So Prabhupada made that point. You as a mother, it is more important for you to look after your child than to serve on the altar. You know, in other words, you serve Krishna better by taking up your responsibility as a mother. So like this, I mean, this whole section, actually, the Bhagavatam, with all of these instructions, most important instructions by Grandfather Bhishmadev, are making this point. We all have different prescribed duties, but we don't understand what those prescribed duties are. Prescribed duties are those that are actually identified and explained in the Shastra. We're not understanding what prescribed duties are, you know. And the whole modern society is, as mentioned in the purport here also, is being misled by individuals who have not been trained to be actual leaders in society, who don't have the real welfare of the citizens in mind. Yeah. So therefore, unless we have such kind of qualified leaders, both in terms of Kshatriyas, both in terms of Brahmanas, both in terms of, well, all the members, especially those in leadership position, again, we need to understand who are the natural leaders in society. And those natural leaders in society are meant to be trained within the system of Varnashrama college specifically, isn't it? The Varnashram college is especially meant to train the natural leaders, you see. And it will also, in one sense, of course, everyone is meant to become first and foremost a Vaishnava. But as Prabhupada again and again and again explained, it is not at all easy to become a pure Vaishnava. So to help all of us become pure Vaishnavas, you take up your different,
It's mentioned in here.
yes,
But
yes, you take up your particular responsibility.
yeah.
I mean, that it's like as clear as what happened to my glasses. Okay, wait.
Glass. Yes.
So
In second,
without
in second
glasses, I
paragraph.
can't see where my glasses are. Yeah, you know,
But it's mentioned in the second paragraph. The Varnashram Dharma is prescribed for the material.
yes.
Yes.
I mean, it's like again and again, like this purport we read yesterday. The conception of the four castes and four orders of life. Conception means what Krishna has created, as planned by the Lord himself, is to accelerate transcendental qualities of the individual person so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity. I mean, how more clear can it be? Isn't it? So it's like when we don't understand this and we artificially, prematurely reject, Krishna's system, that we should be engaged in this way, we should have, society arranged in this way. There should be individuals who are taking up the position of, brahmanas, others are kshatriyas, others are vaishyas, and the rest, they're helping. They're known as shudras. Unfortunately, the very word shudra has a very negative connotation, so nobody wants to be shudra. But the idea is that shudra is meant to exemplify especially what is a servant. Shudra means simply a good servant. Shudra means a good servant. What does a devotee mean? Definition of a devotee means to be a good servant. So we should all aspire to become good Shudras. Isn't it? Yeah. So, so that's why some sections in particular, like this particular, these instructions given by Grandfather Bhishma Dev are very, very important. Very important for our devotees to understand. So that's why, I was talking about, let's try to clean up our place here because that will be pleasing to Krishna. I mean, what do the gopis and Srimati Radharani do in Vrindavan? They do all kinds of arrangements to please Krishna, which includes making flower garlands, which includes, cleaning and keeping things neat and clean, and etc. So, yeah, this is the kind of understanding we need to have and to cultivate. And of course, later on this morning, as we mentioned earlier, we'll be having like an hour and a half from 10:30 to 12 o'clock, where we'll discuss more specifically in regards to Srimati Radharani. But that is, it's like that is in Vrindavan, the mood of all the residents of Vrindavan. That's why Vrindavan is Vrindavan. Yeah.
Yesterday, SCC class, we also discuss about Vrindavan. What is that?
Yes.
In Chaitanya Charitamrita yesterday night.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's all about Vrindavan.
That Guru Maharaj.
Where are we all going? Where are we planning to go? We're planning to go to Goloka Vrindavan. So it's like, our acharyas explained, okay, if you make your mind, if you make your consciousness Vrindavan-like, then when, just before leaving your body, if your mind has been trained in that way, then it's a simple transfer. You're already there, Yeah. So that's why living in the holy dham, but that holy dham where we're living, this particular section, we're in the holy dham actually, well, we should make it like Vrindavan, full of different nice flowers, especially flowers that grow in Vrindavan, and nice gardens, one of the parents actually, Madhu Goranga, mother, she loves to look after like Vrindavan forest. I said, well, that's the beginning of our Vrindavan forest here. Because when we first came here, our our pujari was telling me, Raja Sekar Prabhu, before leaving, a few weeks ago before he left, he was telling me, he says, we're so fortunate to have this tulsi here. He says, when I was first doing pujari service here, I had to go to our neighbors to get tulsi. We didn't have any tulsi. I had to go to Rasamrita Kunj to get tulsi leaves to offer to the Lord. And now, Tulsi Devi is so merciful. She's on this side, she's on this side, she's all around us. And, quite healthy as well. So this Prabhupada would explain, this is a sign, if Tulsi is healthy, if Tulsi is there somewhere and also nicely growing, that's a sign of that there's bhakti there, because Tulsi only grows where there is bhakti. Yeah, that's why those who are karmis cannot look after Tulsi, and Tulsi will not grow there. She will not stay there. Yeah, if there's all kinds of like non-veg and whatnot going on there, the Tulsi is not going to stay there, right? So not only Tulsi, but so many, we're trying to make this place attractive, ultimately for Krishna, and attractive for devotees who will be attracted to Krishna's garden. And in this way will be attracted to Krishna, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so we have just maybe a short time before darshan, and we can, short time actually. Jai Granta Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Shri Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande.